After months of anticipation for the final season of Stranger Things, a shocking leak has sent shockwaves through Netflix and the show's global fan base. Reports claim that Millie Bobby Brown, the young star who grew up before viewers' eyes, filed a formal complaint against her longtime co-star David Harbour, accusing him of bullying and harassment on set. According to sources close to production, the situation reached a breaking point shortly before filming began on the final season. Insiders allege that the environment between Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour had become so tense that the actress insisted on having a personal representative present during filming, someone described as part bodyguard, part advocate, to ensure she felt safe while performing. While no police report or external lawsuit has surfaced, multiple outlets claim that Netflix launched an internal investigation that lasted several months. That investigation reportedly produced a thick document outlining numerous incidents described as persistent unprofessional behavior and patterned verbal hostility. The findings remain sealed, but the very existence of the report has fans and media buzzing about what really happened behind the cameras. What makes the story even more striking is the history between the two stars. When Stranger Things first premiered, Millie Bobby Brown was barely a teenager, while David Harbour was already a seasoned performer in his 40s. Viewers adored their father-daughter dynamic on screen, and interviews over the years painted David Harbour as a mentor who felt protective of the young actress. That's why the alleged shift from protective figure to on-set antagonist has left fans genuinely stunned. People familiar with the internal report emphasize that none of the accusations were of an intimate or sexual nature. Instead, they revolve around alleged outbursts, dismissive comments, and moments that made the set uncomfortable for younger cast members, particularly Millie Bobby Brown. Some accounts suggest that his temper would flare during long filming days, while others describe subtle digs and undermining remarks that wore down morale over time. Netflix has refused public comment, citing corporate confidentiality, but insiders say the company is desperate to keep the focus on finishing Stranger Things rather than on any off-screen drama. With hundreds of millions reportedly invested in the show's concluding season, executives are said to be walking a fine line between protecting their star and preserving one of their flagship series. The leak suggests that Millie Bobby Brown filed her complaint early in 2024, before cameras rolled. That timing raises uncomfortable questions. If the company knew about tensions before filming, why were both actors kept in the same scenes for months afterward? And did producers consider recasting or rewriting to ease the friction? Fans online are asking those exact questions, accusing Netflix of putting profit over the mental well-being of its cast. Observers note that the internal probe reportedly produced dozens of pages of documentation. That level of detail implies a consistent pattern, rather than a single misunderstanding. Still, the absence of official disciplinary action has only fueled speculation. Some argue that David Harbour was quietly warned but ultimately protected because the studio needed his character to conclude the story arc. Others believe the report's contents didn't meet the threshold for punishment. Either way, silence has become Netflix's loudest response. Social media reaction was immediate. Comments flooded every fan forum imaginable. One side insists that without hearing directly from Millie Bobby Brown, the public shouldn't rush to judgment. The other side points to the number of outlets confirming the complaint as proof that something serious occurred. A few loyal followers of David Harbour defend him passionately, describing the allegations as exaggerated or misinterpreted moments blown out of proportion. Meanwhile, longtime supporters of Millie Bobby Brown praise her courage for speaking up against someone twice her age and far more established in the industry. Industry insiders also hint at deeper tensions surrounding David Harbour. Whispers about erratic behavior began circulating around the time of his high-profile divorce from a British singer-songwriter, and colleagues claim he became increasingly volatile afterward. Whether that personal turmoil spilled into his professional life remains unconfirmed, but the overlap in timing has certainly kept gossip channels busy. The fallout has not been confined to the two actors. The show's creators, credited with launching Netflix into global superstardom, are reportedly under scrutiny for forcing the pair to keep working together despite knowing about the complaint. Sources close to production say the writers' decision to keep their characters intertwined throughout the final season has caused behind-the-scenes discomfort and drawn criticism from crew members who witnessed the tension firsthand. One anonymous production assistant allegedly told an entertainment blog that filming some of the emotional scenes felt like walking on glass. Everyone, they said, could sense the distance between the leads. Every time David Harbour walked onto set, you could feel Millie Bobby Brown tense up, the source claimed. Still, she stayed professional. She hit every mark, delivered every line. But the warmth that used to be there, it's gone. Fans who followed Millie Bobby Brown since childhood find the situation particularly painful. She has always spoken about how Stranger Things shaped her life and career, yet recent interviews show her noticeably distant from the project. Her social media posts barely mention the show anymore, and during press appearances, she avoids discussing her co-stars. To many, that silence speaks louder than any confirmation could. Entertainment analysts point out that this case highlights a broader pattern in Hollywood, how internal complaints within large productions often stay hidden behind non-disclosure agreements. Without public transparency, audiences are left piecing together leaks, speculation, and unnamed sources. As one critic put it, the system protects the brand first, then the stars, and finally, maybe the truth. Netflix is now dealing with a full-blown PR dilemma. Executives reportedly fear that if the leak overshadows the premiere, investors could question how effectively the company manages workplace issues. In response, marketing teams are preparing a tightly controlled publicity plan designed to highlight nostalgia, special effects, and the conclusion of beloved storylines. Anything to steer the conversation away from internal strife. Still, fans notice details. Posters and promotional photos conspicuously avoid showing Millie Bobby Brown and David Harbour side by side. Observers interpret this as proof that the rift is real. Others argue it's simply marketing coincidence. But in the world of internet gossip, coincidence rarely satisfies curiosity. Meanwhile, journalists continue digging. Several outlets claim that David Harbour has quietly hired new PR representation, specializing in crisis management. He hasn't addressed the allegations directly, but sources say he's frustrated and believes the leaks distort his side of the story. People close to him insist he's passionate but misunderstood, describing him as a method actor whose intensity can sometimes be mistaken for hostility. They argue that long hours and creative pressure created friction, not malice. Still, skeptics recall previous whispers about his temper. A few years ago, he made headlines for a heated encounter with paparazzi outside an event. Others cite on-set interviews where he admitted struggling with anger and anxiety. For critics, those old clips have resurfaced as supporting evidence that he might indeed have crossed professional lines with Millie Bobby Brown. What no one can deny is the awkwardness now facing the production team. Filming intimate or emotional scenes between two actors at odds presents enormous challenges. Crew members reportedly worked overtime to schedule them apart whenever possible, even shooting their dialogue separately and editing footage together later. Those logistical gymnastics have allegedly inflated the production budget further. A nightmare for Netflix, which already poured record sums into Stranger Things' final chapter. Despite the turbulence, some within the company insist the project remains on track for its scheduled premiere. They emphasize that both actors are professionals committed to delivering a satisfying conclusion for fans. Yet privately, few believe the tension will dissipate anytime soon. A public reunion tour, red carpet appearances, or shared interviews seem increasingly unlikely. In fact, one marketing insider confided that the company is preparing separate promotional itineraries, one for Millie Bobby Brown, one for David Harbour. Outside of the entertainment bubble, psychologists and industry experts have weighed in on the broader implications. They point out that child stars like Millie Bobby Brown often face power imbalances when working with much older co-stars and producers. Even non-physical forms of harassment can have lasting emotional consequences. One media psychologist explained, when someone begins a career as a minor, they grow up in a hierarchy where older figures control not only their schedules, but their self-worth. When those relationships turn toxic, the damage doesn't just vanish with age. Fans have taken up virtual sides across social media platforms. The hashtags supporting Millie Bobby Brown and defending David Harbour trend simultaneously, creating a digital tug-of-war over who deserves sympathy. Clips of past interviews, convention panels, and bloopers are dissected frame by amateur sleuths hunting for signs of tension they might have missed before. Every sideways glance becomes evidence. Every laugh becomes a mask. It's modern fandom in overdrive. Adding fuel to the fire, a tabloid reported that David Harbour's former partner publicly expressed support for him during the investigation. While she didn't address the allegations directly, her statement that he was a deeply passionate and caring person divided opinion. Some saw it as loyalty, others saw it as enabling behavior. Her own music project, allegedly referencing heartbreak and infidelity, only deepened the intrigue. Amid the noise, the only person who has stayed consistently silent is Millie Bobby Brown herself. Her representatives have not denied the existence of the complaint, which many commentators interpret as quiet confirmation. Yet without her direct voice, the story remains an echo chamber of speculation. Still, for those who have followed her journey from childhood prodigy to respected adult performer, the notion that she felt compelled to file a complaint at all feels like a heartbreaking full circle. Industry veterans predict that the long-term consequences for David Harbour will depend on how Netflix handles the premiere press cycle. If the company successfully distracts attention with nostalgia and spectacle, the issue may fade into background noise. If not, the actor could face serious reputational damage, jeopardizing future roles. A single misstep, one awkward interview, one visible snub between co-stars could reignite the entire controversy. Behind closed doors, executives reportedly debate whether to release a sanitized version of the investigation results to quell rumors. Publicists warn that doing so might backfire, confirming more than it clarifies. For Millie Bobby Brown, sources say the experience has been both painful and empowering. Friends describe her as exhausted but determined, committed to finishing the series despite personal discomfort. She reportedly hopes to close this chapter and shift focus to upcoming film projects where she has more creative control. Those close to her believe she sees the ordeal as a turning point, a lesson in asserting boundaries in an industry that too often ignores them. And yet, the question lingers, what truly happened on that set? Was it simply a clash of personalities magnified by fame and pressure, or something far darker? As fans dissect every headline, the mystery only deepens, setting the stage for what could become one of the most dissected behind-the-scenes sagas in recent television history. The world now waits to see how Netflix navigates the chaos, how David Harbour responds if he chooses to break his silence, and whether Millie Bobby Brown will ever speak publicly about what she endured. Because as the premiere of Stranger Things approaches, one thing is certain: the drama off-screen has become just as gripping as anything written into the script itself. Whispers within the entertainment world grew louder in the weeks following the leak. Netflix's silence had started to look like damage control rather than professionalism, and audiences began questioning how far the network was willing to go to protect its stars. What many didn't expect was the shift in public opinion. The more people read the leaked complaint, the more they began to sympathize with Millie Bobby Brown. Fans dissected every past interview, every behind-the-scenes clip, searching for moments that seemed to confirm her discomfort around David Harbour. Old videos resurfaced online, showing awkward exchanges, and fans began drawing connections that may or may not have been there. But perception had already taken root. For David Harbour, the fallout was immediate. Upcoming interviews were canceled. Even longtime colleagues started distancing themselves, unsure of how deep the controversy might go. And while no formal disciplinary action had been made public, insiders hinted that Netflix was quietly conducting its own internal review, an effort to appear transparent while still protecting the show's massive reputation. Yet through it all, Millie Bobby Brown remained quiet. No official statement, no interviews, no posts. Her silence became its own kind of power. Some saw it as strategic restraint, others as a sign of genuine pain. But either way, it made people listen. By the time Netflix finally addressed the situation publicly, through a carefully worded statement promising to uphold respect and safety in every production, the narrative had already shifted. What began as a leak had transformed into a larger conversation about accountability in Hollywood. It wasn't just about two actors anymore. It was about the system that allowed behavior like this to go unchecked for so long. And as fans continued to argue online, one thing was clear. No matter how this ends, Stranger Things will never be viewed the same way again. If you've been following this story from the beginning, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to like the video so more people can join the discussion. Because this story, like so many in Hollywood, might just be the start of something much bigger.